Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast, your home for inspiring conversations with outdoor insiders. Each week, author, speaker, adventurer, and outdoor industry veteran Rick Saez talks in depth with iconic brand founders, sales and marketing pros, product designers, and industry rising stars. Listen in when Rick's guests offer actionable advice to land your ideal industry gig and grow your outdoor career. Catch us again when the conversation shifts to the hottest outdoor products, destinations, and the latest industry insights. And now, here's Rick.
Welcome to episode 300 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Jack Ballard. Jack might be the only person to run for Congress with his bird dog as an integral part of his campaign. Of course, there are many other elements to his platform, such as education, healthcare, jobs and wages, the impact of drought on ag lands, wildfire mitigation, and more. Jack is the consummate outdoorsman, a nationally renowned outdoor writer and photographer who literally wrote the book, two actually, on elk hunting, as well as numerous books on iconic species in the Rocky Mountains and elsewhere in the country. And now he's planning to use his background as a communicator, former farmer, rancher, outdoorsman, and educator to find workable solutions in Congress for all of us. Hey everyone, welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. I'm excited to be here in Jay Peak, Vermont with Jack Ballard this morning. Jack's running for Congress in Montana. He's an Outdoor Writers Association member, as am I. We're here for the annual conference, and we're going to talk to Jack about what he's doing for Congress, what he's going to do in Congress when he gets there, and some other stuff about his outdoor career. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Thanks, Rick.
Good to have you on this morning. So I always start out by finding out how everybody got introduced to the outdoor biz. And I'm assuming your introduction came via the family farm. You grew up on a family farm, right?
Yeah, it was outdoors was just part of my life from as far back as I can remember. Was going out when I was a little kid, following my dad around, feeding black Angus cattle in the winter and smelling hay in the summer, chasing grasshoppers, and on and on and on.
Wow, very cool. You had family chores, I'm sure?
Yes, more chores than I care to remember. By the time I was early grade school, I was spending almost an hour doing chores before I left for school in the morning and about an hour in the evening.
Wow, and just like milking cows and cleaning out barns.
Milk cows, fed chickens, fed bulls, cleaned out barns. The worst was cleaning out the chicken house. That was horrible.
I've been in some chicken coops. They are messy, dirty, smelly. Worse than cows, I think.
Yes.
I haven't cleaned them, though. So what did you do for fun? You sound like you did a lot of work.
We just kind of ran around the ranch for fun, really. I got a BB gun when I was 6 years old, and so ran around and shot at things with my BB gun for fun. And then we did things like jump off a haystack into a small pile of hay and hope you don't get hurt, that kind of thing.
Did you break bones, I'm sure?
No, interestingly, out of 7 kids, I had an older brother that cracked a collarbone.
That was it?
That was it. I attribute it to lots of weight-bearing exercise, and then we drank water on the ranch was horrible.
Oh, really?
And so we pretty much drank skim milk.
Huh.
And so I consumed gallons of skim milk and did a lot of weight-bearing exercise, and I think I have pretty good bone.
A lot of activity probably helped out, yeah. Why was the water bad?
Just the nature of the well is really hard, kind of mineral, rusty water. I mean, if you let the water hit the side of the house when you were watering the grass, the side of the house would turn brown after a while.
Wow, interesting. Huh, that's not good. And other than coaching ski racers, have you had a traditional outdoor job? Did you work retail, or you did some guiding, I think?
No, I've actually never done any guiding, but I did teach at MSU Billings for about 15 years in the education department. Mm-hmm. Other than summer jobs, that's the only kind of traditional job I held for a long period of time.
And nothing related to outdoor, like no retail, no...
Nope.
Yeah. You were just an outdoor consumer.
An outdoor consumer.
Good. We need lots of those. And what inspired the conservationist in you?
Well, that's a number of things. My dad was a rancher, and so there was the side of him that there was a little bit of a us against them in relation to certain wildlife species, but he also just really loved wildlife, like to try to identify different kind of birds and things. And that kind of piqued my interest in, at least in wildlife, and then started thinking about the bigger picture of how the species are doing.
And the land, probably, since you had a family farm, I'm sure you were always concerned about the land, the health of the land. And
you're always concerned about the health of the land. As a farmer, you're trying to find that balance between how much you can produce and how much you need to let rest. And weather plays such a huge part in the type of farming, ranching that we did, that you get extremely aware of how weather affects plant growth, that kind of thing.
And in Montana, you had some extreme weather.
We had some extreme weather, although the weather is definitely more extreme now than it was when I was a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, climate change is really upon us, no matter what they say. It's here.
Yes.
Yeah. And how did you pick up photography and writing?
I picked up photography and writing by reading outdoor magazines. My dad subscribed to Outdoor Life, and then when I got in college and stuff, I looked at other outdoor magazines, and one point just thought, man, I think I could do this. You know, I have 2 graduate degrees, and so I did a lot of writing in grad school. And it's like, yeah, I think I can do this.
Mm-hmm. And how about photography?
Photography was kind of an accident. My ex-wife had some Nikon camera equipment, and I started messing around with it. One fall, we went to Yellowstone just to kind of tour around, do some hiking, listen to the elk bugle, and I had that camera and took elk photos, and it just really grabbed me.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing to be able to go see something beautiful and then snap a photo and see it that you created on the computer screen or prints or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and part of that, actually, the best experience I had on that trip, this is in the film days. This is when you're advancing your film manually with your thumb. And so I got on this herd of elk. I actually got the closest to them that I had of anything on the trip, and the color was beautiful. Everything was perfect. And I get to frame number 36 on my roll of film, and that's cool. I advance it. Okay, I'm going to get bonus frame 37 and then bonus frame 38. And at like bonus frame 44, I'm going, uh-oh. And if you shot back in the film days, you know the end of that story. There was no film in the camera.
Oh.
And so there was a little bit of a motivation to go back and somehow try to recapture that.
Mm-hmm. I've done that with podcasts, believe it or not. Get all through the podcast and realize, oh, I didn't press the record button.
Yeah, exactly the same idea.
And so embarrassed I feel bad because then I got to go to the guest. You know, we have to do that again. Were you able to recapture some of those pictures?
Well, not exactly, obviously, but I've got some wonderful images that I shot on slide film back in the day,
cool.
And then now digital in Yellowstone with elk. So I feel like I've kind of redeemed myself.
That's right. And did you give up your faculty position and go into full-time writing and photography, or was that kind of simultaneous?
No, I did give up my faculty position. I started doing the writing and photography on the side and just kept finding more outlets, and it was really successful. I was really fortunate to have a department head that was sympathetic to what I was doing. And so I wound up dropping from full-time to half-time I think I taught half-time for about 3 years and then resigned completely, which I don't know if that's the smartest thing I've ever done in my life. That, you know, that regular paycheck and insurance and all that, but it's worked out really well, so I don't have any regrets.
Yeah, no, good for you. And now you're running for a U.S. House seat in Montana, and I'm really happy to see 2 of your key issues are climate change and public lands. That's hugely important, as those of us in the outdoors know. Just not even if you're in the outdoors, it's hugely important for life if we're going to continue life on this planet. And environmentally, it feels like we're still reliving the 70s. Give us your outlook for the environment on public lands over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years.
The frustration for me in relation to public lands with climate change is how slow we're moving on a lot of things. And I see things in Montana that aren't dramatic issues. And I'm thinking particularly of the way that invasive species, plant species in particular, have thrived in wildlife habitat in Montana. And there's just not a whole lot going on to address that.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, I live in California, and I've seen it in California my entire life, growing up as a kid in the 70s and late 60s, east of LA. I mean, we used to joke about not being able to see the mountains because of the smog, and our lungs would hurt at the end of the day. And it seems like it's better, but we're still driving all these gas-powered cars, and I'm about to turn 62. It's like, when are we going to get past this? I mean, I don't know. Do you think we'll be able to do it in our lifetimes?
Well, if we don't, the consequences are pretty severe for our children. And it's definitely a bigger issue than fossil fuels, although that's a big part of it. But the way we do agriculture is another really important thing. And then the destruction of all of those ecosystems around the globe right now, rainforests, people are obviously aware of that sink carbon, but also the mangrove coastal ecosystems that are hugely beneficial for carbon sequestration and also buffer coastal communities from storms. So there's a huge picture in relation to climate change, and it's hard to just latch onto a piece at a time.
Yeah. It's almost like we need different groups to take on different pieces so that we can get them all at the same time, because Mother Nature is a very complex web.
Exactly. And I think what you said is really the key, to have different groups that understand their slice of the problem. And then the federal government obviously has a role in trying to put that all together in a meaningful way and manage it, move it along, deal with private enterprise and entrepreneurial efforts to get the most bang for our buck, so to speak.
Yeah, and help fund some of those smaller groups because they might have a great cause and a great idea, but no money.
Exactly.
We're going to take a little break and give some love to our sponsor. I've heard from some of you photographers out there that you've always wanted to sell your photos online. Well, SmugMug makes it easy. With a few clicks, you can start selling prints and digital downloads right away. They handle everything from billing to shipping and work with some of the best labs in the world. RickSaezPhotography.com has been with SmugMug for over 20 years, and they've handled every transaction flawlessly. Go to ricksaez.com/sellphotos and try it for free. To set up your account today, go to ricksaez.com/sellphotos. Now back to the show. So you still find time to get outdoors. What kind of things you do these days?
Well,
now you don't do anything. You're running for Congress.
So I'm really focused on running for Congress in a way that I think running for political office has the ability to change people in ways that are not helpful in representing their constituency. And I'm very committed to the idea of as much as possible, will continue to be the Montanan that I am, because I think that's what helps you represent people. So I'm going pheasant hunting and wild turkey hunting next week, do some waterfowl hunting, and then when elk season opens later in October, go back to our family elk camp and hunt elk. It's what I'm going to do.
Do what you do. That's great. Yeah. It's funny how people do change. I can't figure out if it's the money, because everybody says there's no money, but there's obviously money in it, but they get into office and they just flip almost.
The money is, if we want to get into my view on the political process, having seen it now, you can't overestimate the corrupting influence of money in politics in the U.S. right now. If I listen to the political consultants on my shoulder, I would be making fundraising calls 4 hours a day, every day,
really?
just trying to rake in money. So In Congress, so I'm running for Congress. I've read research that indicates that the average representative in Congress spends about half of their working hours raising money for the next election.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm pretty naive on that front.
Well, so you wonder why nothing gets done. I think that's your answer.
And it's not what is getting done is probably not getting done by the people in Congress because they only have 4 hours a day left to do their work, but they're probably getting fed all kinds of stuff from aides and various people that they don't have time to vet and read. And do I really believe in this or just go sell it?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that I think is hugely problematic that I'm seeing is, so I got into this race in August, okay? So if I win my primary, by the time the general election comes around next year, I will have been campaigning for 15 months.
Wow.
I have flexible work schedule. I can still work and campaign through the primary and then general election. That'll be the full-time deal, obviously. But who has 15 months that they can just set aside their life and run for office? And so the other thing I think that would be hugely beneficial in getting better representation for kind of normal people is to severely shrink that election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 6 weeks, 2 months for the primary and the same for the general election and just get it done.
Mm-hmm. You would have to pass some kind of a law, though, to make them not able to campaign until X date, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be tough. Because with the news cycle and everybody wanting to talk to you and get your feedback, you have to almost legislate them, not the people running.
Well, I think that also contributes to the polarization in the country. When you pretty much start at the end of one election, you start campaigning for the next. Politics and politicians and polarization are in people's face year-round now, where if we shorten that cycle, I think people would have months to sit back and breathe and say, oh, geez, you vote for the other party, but wow, you're still a good neighbor. And
yeah.
I like fishing with you and whatever, and that's okay.
Yeah, good time to social with each other, yeah. That's interesting. Do you have any daily routines you use to keep your sanity? Stay out of all that stuff?
My biggest thing that I use for sanity is the outdoors and exercise. Mm-hmm. I was an athlete in high school and have maintained some kind of a competitive athletic influence all through my adult life.
Those shoes just never stop flowing, do they?
No, they don't.
I'm the same way.
Yeah, and then just get outside a lot, working with the dogs and whatnot. So.
Oh, cool. That's fun. What kind of dogs do you have?
English setters, a father and son.
Oh, nice. Hunting dogs, I'm sure.
Well, the father, Percy, he's 8 years old, and he's a bird hunting machine. He's also a bit of an oddball for a setter. He loves to hunt waterfowl. He's an extremely skilled waterfowl retriever. So we start, if the weather's okay, 1st of September, and then I hunt with him till the duck season closes mid-January.
Wow. That's cool. That's great. Good to have family dogs around that do that. Do you have any favorite books or books you give as gifts?
Well,
you've written some books, so
yeah. When I give books away, it's typically my own. I did a wildlife photography book here about 4 years ago, and then same time I was also working on a book. It's called Large Mammals of the Rocky Mountains.
Oh,
it's kind of an encyclopedic, I guess you would say, biology / natural history of mammals in the Rocky Mountains that typically weigh over 100 pounds. So that was
very cool. That's fun. That must have been fun to put together.
It was fun. It was a lot of work. I learned a lot doing the research on that mammals book particularly, and was just fortunate to be able to talk to dozens of biologists at state game agencies, in federal agencies. And it was tough, but it was a really rewarding project.
I'll bet, yeah. Was that the first kind of encyclopedic type book you've done?
Yeah, and it actually, I had written up a number of the species as smaller pocket guides. Mm-hmm. And what we did, the original editor on those pocket guides said, oh, it'd be really cool if at the end of this we put all these together into a big book. And that sounded great. And then he went off of the series for some reason, but then he came back on, and that's what we did at the end. I had to write up, I think it was 4 or 5 species that we hadn't done a pocket guide on. But other than that, it was expanding and working with those.
Having the material in the can, that makes it a little easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And do you have any suggestions or advice for folks that want to get into outdoor writing, outdoor photography, the outdoor business?
The writing and photography is just frankly is tough. When I got into it, photography was film. Mm-hmm. So you had to be a really good photographer.
Yeah.
Because you went out in the field. It wasn't like you can check your LCD screen and say, oh, yeah, I got the exposure right there. Or, oh, geez, there's this branch sticking through the fish's head that I'm trying to photograph in somebody's hand and all that. So it took more skill.
And if you got some of those bad shots, there wasn't the editing software to fix it.
No.
You had to go redo it.
No. When I first started submitting photos for publication, you stuck like 20 slides in a plastic sleeve and you sent them in snail mail. Yeah. It was a totally different process. And the post-production editing software, being able to shoot digital and just see where you're at on an LCD screen has frankly made it so much easier to get professional level photos that part of the business is tough.
Yeah.
Stock photography, when I was starting out, you could place slides at stock agencies and they would market things. It was a 50-50 split if they sold stuff. The one agency that I worked with, they had a $75 minimum. So the minimum I was going to take for an image was $37.50 on my split. And now there's stock agencies all over that you can buy the same rights for $5.
Yeah, sometimes less. Yeah, it's changed a ton. Yeah.
But all that said, if you do really good work, there's no substitute for quality. People that are really good writers, really good photographers that are passionate about what they do, and find a niche, can still make a living in outdoors.
Yeah, it seems like the generalist has kind of gone by the wayside. You're probably better off focusing on one or two things.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting. And what is one or two actions all of us in the outdoor biz can take to dial up the urgency about climate change? And we talked about it earlier. It just seems to be, I was born in 1960, and some of the things we're doing today, we're still like doing them like we did in 1965. And now that climate change is upon us, we have to fast track it. What can we do?
I think everybody has to figure out their thing that reminds them of the urgency. So I'll tell you my silly little thing.
Yeah.
I pretty much take cold showers. Okay. There's a little bit of a mental discipline piece to it, but when I get in the shower and I take a cold shower, if I'm like filthy dirty, yeah, I take a hot shower, and I take a hot shower once in a while. But routinely, before I go to bed, I take a cold shower. And it just reminds me that, okay, I saved 2 gallons of hot water. And it keeps it in my face that my actions make a difference. And I think people developing something like that, whatever it is, to create your own personal awareness, and then consumption. I mean, at the end of the day, consumption is climate change. Mm-hmm. Pretty much anything that we consume is related to climate change. So just being really intelligent in how you consume. Are the products I'm consuming renewable? What's the carbon footprint of the clothes that I wear, the vehicle that I drive, the food that I eat, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. We all can and consume less, right? Do I really need another pair of Levi's?
Exactly.
There's no holes in them. These are still good.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite piece of outdoor gear that you've purchased under $100? This question seems it's the hardest question I ask from what I've learned.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Okay, so I'm good at losing knives. Okay. So I've purchased lots of knives, and I would say a single blade folding, locking knife with about a 2-inch blade.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I kind of use for everything. I mean, I can dismantle a whole elk with a little 2-inch knife. And so I've bought lots of those. I try to buy quality that's U.S. made. And so, yeah, it comes in under $100.
It's interesting. A lot of folks, I don't know a ton of folks that have grown up on farms and ranches, but a handful, and they all have a 2-inch blade that's in their pocket all the time. And you're right. They can do anything with it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You just learned that on the ranch, on the farm?
Yeah, pretty much. My dad had he called it a pocket knife. Mm-hmm. And I think his had 3 blades, but yeah, he did everything with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's cool. That's a good skill to have. As we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say or ask of our audience?
Well, I guess back to the sense of climate change and wildlife conservation, try to be really mindful of what's going on in your backyard. I'm interested in what's going on around the globe, but where I can affect meaningful change is in my community. Mm-hmm. And keep your focus there and try to pick out one project or one organization that you're really passionate about and get behind it and work hard to make it happen.
That's good advice. Own your local and then branch out from there.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool. And where can people find you if they want to follow up? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Well, for my campaign, it's ballardformontana.com. And then we're also on Facebook, Twitter. My personal website is jackballard.com, and that's where you'll find more of my outdoor writing, that kind of thing.
Excellent. Well, we'll link to all that stuff in the show notes. Well, Jack, thanks for taking the time. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Likewise.
I look forward to hanging out with you here for the next few days.
Yep.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend about the show. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Saez.